Taiwan, with South Africa, and our guest one, Scott Newman, before the break. That will be our lineup. So very excited to hear all the reports. All right. Okay. Um,
Thank you everyone for having me here. So congratulations to the Advanced Air Mobility Institute. It was really insightful event in the last 3 days. So was amazing to listen to the different speeches. And I may start.
yes,
Okay,
please.
perfect.
Go ahead. Yes, sure. Thank you.
And you can see the slides as well, right?
Yes, everything
Excellent,
works.
perfect. So the idea for today is really to touch a bit the areas that are the challenges for all of us in the OEMs, developing eVTOLs, hybrid electric VTOLs, short takeoff and landing versions, those that hopefully can bring also some networking, but also possible collaborations, because for all of us, it's extremely important to cut the cost, to accelerate the development program. And if there is a possibility of collaboration among us, it will definitely help everyone. So the points that I would like to touch from the beginning, hopefully will be relevant for everyone in this sector. And in the second part, would go a bit more into our project, Manta, so what we are doing and where we are at the moment. Probably the most important topic that we are all facing, or we are going to face very soon now, is the performance. So the play between the range and the payload, a lot is written about that. A lot of promises are out there, but reality probably is going to hit us all very fast. And we will see what is the true performance, what is possible to be delivered under different circumstances, and especially here would touch also the environmental impact, since it has quite a bit of the influence on the performance as well. Certification framework, a lot was already explained in the last 3 days, maybe just the latest information and where we are at the moment and what can help us forward. The infrastructure part, and we heard yesterday also a few very interesting presentations on the regulation of the lower airspace. And at the end, what's going to stay on the market needs to be business viable. So what are the points that we will all need to consider as well? When we all speak about performance, it's normally, when we speak about it, what we normally mention is the capacity of batteries. So how the batteries are developing, with what rate. We hear these 2 to 3% per year. And it's, if we look at the moment, it's still not there where we would like to have it. So I think it's lithium approximately 350 watt hour per kilo. And if we go into the solid base or anode, silicon anode, would be around 450 to 500 kilowatt kilowatt hour per kilo. And it's, if we think about what's our demands, what we actually need, it would make sense to discuss it when we reach 1001 kilowatt hour per kilo. So that's why it's maybe not only to focus on batteries only, but to focus on the full propulsion system, on different parts of the propulsion system, because on electric motors, there is still so many things that can be developed, and is so much innovation opportunities there, which is often not touched, but it's something that can be researched and developed also possible in the collaborations because all the parties would benefit out of it. And when we speak about the whole propulsion system, it's I know that it's everything going into sustainable and green, but it's also to consider using the turbines, which today can be very, very optimized versions, which can run on SAF as well and can be, at least for the short mid-term, until we reach the level that we can be fully green and we can reach the range or the payload desired, a good solution, a good solution. So I'm talking about the hybrid electric, hybrid propulsion system, which is the option. We also see the trend that a lot of players today are considering or are already researching this option, the hybrid propulsion system, because we are suffering with the range. And today, if you cannot provide a certain range and the payload, then business-wise, financially, we are not going to be competitive, neither viable on the longer range. It's okay to showcase the flight 1-2 times, but if we cannot sustain the business later on, it's not going to bring much value to the whole aerospace system. Then when we think about the performance, there are so many other criteria, and one of them for sure is the environment as well, either extremely cold or extremely hot. And since Manta International moved fully to the UAE, we are, of course, working much more in the area of the hot climate, high humidity, high temperatures, salinity as well, how all these impact the systems, and it's a lot have been done in this area. But in general, we know with the high temperatures, this will have the impact on the batteries directly and indirectly, because if we want that our passengers will be somehow comfortable, we will need to have the AC on board, and the AC is additional user of the energy, so it can drain the batteries a lot as well. So it's always something to consider, and it's not only the AC for the passengers. Even if we say cargo transportation, there will be a need of additional cooling systems for the subsystems, for the motors, electric motors. So it's always something that will be added on to the structure, and whatever we add on increases weight, and weight is our enemy. So it's something that we are fighting all the time. And talking about the harsh environment, which means that it's going probably to impact the performance in terms of lower payload or shorter range, then the safety requirements comes on the top as well. And safety requirements on the general, if we speak in general, either transportation of the cargo or of the passengers, but then also for the special missions. And when I mentioned the special missions, we have been considering very seriously transportation. It will be described later on as well, to the oil rigs, or mainly offshore, onshore as well, but offshore especially. And we know that for flying over the water, so for offshore operations, there are certain additional safety requirements. One of them is also that you need to have this flotation system that would allow evacuation of passengers on board, which is, again, it's a weight, it's quite heavy. And if we check what is today mounted or assembled on the helicopters that are doing those operations, it can weigh from 400 to 600 kilo, which is in many cases almost our full payload. For sure, the structural parts are different, and we will require less, but it's something to be considered. So it's there are a lot of missions there where we all can serve to offer optimized solutions, but we need to consider all the aspects. So it's what everything needs to be done in order to serve those missions. On paper, everything looks good, but in reality, then we are often pushed back. next to the performance, we are all struggling to understand what's going to be the certification framework. And I think it was now last week or it was a few days ago, the FAA just released the advisory circular about power lift certification guidelines, which is extremely good for all of us because at least there will be some clarity how we can proceed. And there are many initiatives going on, one of them also in the UAE, in the Emirates, to accelerate the certification process. So there is collaboration between the GCAA and the FAA. And at the moment, I think they're working also on collaboration between EASA and GCAA to set the framework for certification. It will be probably, as you are all following, the mixture between the requirements for the light aircraft and for the rotorcraft and the special conditions. But it's those initiatives that are coming from the, let's say, smaller countries and smaller or not legacy certification authorities. It's absolutely welcome because it can accelerate the path forward. And at the end, even when the guidelines are clear, it will be extremely important that we all do the necessary testing as well. Probably all of us who are targeting also the defense area, it's faster. I wouldn't say it's simpler or easier, but at least it's faster. And it's specific to the specific country or entity. And then when we speak about the cargo, we do believe that it's going to be shorter and simpler process for certification, especially if the plan of the cargo transportation will run in the certain corridors or not over the populated areas. But the most difficult one and the most lengthy and also capital intensive for sure is transportation of the people, of passengers. And this, in the current environment, experience shows that it's almost nothing below 3 years. So we do hope that those collaborations on the local areas with the legacy authority certification entities is going to accelerate the path forward as well. And collaboration among all of us players would definitely be helpful because that's the most expensive, the most capital intensive part. And whatever we can share, collaborate, use the off-the-shelf or standardized subsystems, it's going to be helpful for all of us. Nobody has unlimited capital, so it's definitely important that we collaborate as much as possible, that we share the know-how on the path towards either type certification, manufacturing certification, airworthiness. So all the parts that we need to fulfill in order to be able to start operations that we are aiming for. Infrastructure, or we can touch the business viable, but one of the parts is definitely the infrastructure part. If we want to operate, we need to be able to land somewhere. We hear a lot about building of the vertiports. A lot is going on, but that's also the area which is capital intensive. And there is always a question, who is going to invest into the infrastructure? In the past, we heard a lot about the vertiports could be built on the top of the buildings. Reality showed that unfortunately, there are not many buildings that would be able to sustain the additional weight because whoever builds either the building or the rest of the infrastructure, the tolerance is not so high that could compensate additional few tons on the top. Everyone tried to build in the optimized way. So this, unfortunately, is not in many cases the right solution, but it's building anew, which means also we need to take a piece of land. And it's a question, is it still so sustainable or it's not? So where we are going to build those vertiports, or what came also from the UAE, it's a very good solution considering all the existing heliports to be hybridized, so to offer the infrastructure also for the eVTOLs. So not only for the helicopters, but in addition also for the eVTOLs. That's definitely the helpful part. And regarding the lower airspace, the U space, yesterday was quite few presentations on that topic. For us, it's definitely important, the clarity. More clarity we get, how we will be able to operate, where we are going to be allowed to fly, under what conditions, what priorities will be set. This will help us all to be able to adapt, but also to design in the way that we can fulfill those requirements. Maybe just one of the topic is because we all state normally when we present our air vehicles, what speed can we achieve? So if we speak about the urban air mobility, there was a lot of discussions that the speed might be limited because populated areas, high buildings, it's probably impossible to expect that there are going to be darts flying around with a very high speed, but there will be a certain limitation. So all those things will help us to adapt the vehicles for the specific missions we would like to perform. And thinking about when we are going to be, or what will make us really business viable, it's not only the acquisition cost, which normally we think about, okay, how much does it cost the air vehicle? It's not only that. For sure, it's important. The acquisition cost is important, but it's the other side as well. How much it cost me to operate it on the daily level. And because we all would like to have the different missions, one of the important parts is cargo transportation. Cargo business or logistics in general is extremely cost sensitive, extremely. For sure, our vehicles from all the providers that are targeting this part of the market is something that we need to make it optimized, and we are targeting transportation of either high value goods or on the other side, perishable. So everything connected with the time and with the value of the goods, how it needs to be transported. Still, logistic is a tough market, and we will probably all need to work upon how to make our operations financially more optimized and more accessible, especially for the cargo transportation, for the logistics. Maybe passengers, especially the areas of VIP transportation, can compensate or can accept slightly higher cost. But daily transportation, where this would be additional mean of transportation, we still need to consider the cost per seat, the cost per kilo of cargo very, very seriously. And when we calculate the total operational cost, what are the key components that are contributing to the cost? The batteries definitely are one of the key parts that will make our vehicles more expensive on the daily basis. Why? At the moment, if we just think about fully battery propelled eVTOL, it will have, if the vehicle wants to transport between 4 to 5 or 6 passengers, it will need to have from 800 to 1 ton of the batteries. And the cost of the battery per kilo today is around $300 to $350 per kilo. And it's still limited in cycles. So if we can perform around 800 cycles, if we do a quick math, we can see that almost 4 times a year, the full pack of batteries will need to be changed in order to fulfill the safety requirements. And if we calculate that, that means almost $1.2 million per year only to maintain the batteries. So it is a substantial cost for sure. The other part, when we discuss with the different entities, what was often stated as important is how flexible are those vehicles to serve different missions. And what we see here on the picture is actually it's Manta aircraft, which where we can fast change the parts. So it's either the nose, so we can put the different kind of sensors there, whatever is required by the mission. The parts of the canards, the winglets, and the parts on the fin as well. So it's everywhere where we can set the sensors or different payloads and can be easily changed, replaced, so that the aircraft can fulfill a different mission. Why is that important? From the operator's point of view, it's not that if I want to serve 3 missions, I need to have 3 different air vehicles. If I have one and I can just replace few parts on it easily, then I'm much more cost optimized. So I can serve 3 different missions and still operating the same type of the aircraft, or maybe even having one only and serve different missions, which gives then the operators much more freedom, but also smaller operators opportunity to start the business and serve in the areas where maybe at the moment there are no such of services. And when I say no such of services, I definitely think about the areas where infrastructure is not so available. We can think about the full Africa. We can think about Australia, Canada, South Africa, everywhere where we have the huge lands, but not everywhere established infrastructure. So there, of course, would be very important to have the smaller operators who can rely on the air vehicles that are highly modifiable, easy modifiable, and also all those changes and the maintenance, MRO in general, doesn't require highly experienced engineers, but can be easily done with the normal workforce, or let's say average workforce, because all this is going to impact the total operational cost for the operators. There are 2 areas which, and especially one which all of us still don't know exactly what kind of cost we need to consider, and insurance is definitely one of it. I think yesterday there was, or was it 2 days back, there was one presentation about the insurance as well. We still don't have very clear guidelines. How much is going to cost us? How it's going to be the calculation done for the insurance for those eVTOLs? And it's, if we just think about the new technology, whatever is new technology is connected to the higher risk. That's normal. If the risk is higher, what the insurance is going to do? They will put the additional margin on the top. That's a normal a business reaction or a business decision. So that means the cost of insurance will come on the top of everything what we are already calculating. And especially legacy aviation, we all know that airplanes or helicopters are built for a long period of time. So amortization, if it's done on over the 10, maybe 15 years, for the eVTOLs, it's a new technology. We are starting it, which means there will be changes on the way through the service. Practice will show what is required, what changes are required. Can we still use the amortization over such a long period of time? Or we will need to cut it short, which means again, per year, the cost is going to be higher. These are just, let's say, the topics that we will all need to face sooner or later. And we would be very, very happy if we can discuss with different OEMs, but also together with the insurance providers, what would be a good model that can support all the parties involved, not only the OEMs, not only the insurance, also the operators and the end users at the end, because we will all benefit if we find the common solution which is going to serve everyone. So that's definitely one topic that we would like to move forward together also with the others. And now let's touch shortly in a few minutes, Manta. So we are hybrid propulsion system, which means we have the batteries, but we have the turbine as well. Vertical and short takeoff and landing. And I just prepared few missions where we are focusing at the moment. So one of the missions is spraying oil spills, since we are based in the UAE, and this is the region not only, but here is a region of oil and gas, and those things happen on the daily basis, and they need to be managed well. At the moment, what is used are the helicopters, and if we consider eVTOLs in general, are much the total operational cost is much lower. So we are aiming around 25% of the cost of the helicopter, similar size for those operations. The whole fuselage can be used to put the chemical in, which is sprayed. And we can, especially if we would go with the short takeoff, or even if we go vertically, we can still provide a good or relevant long range, which is going to help then to reach the place, to perform the mission, and then return back without need of charging. And especially for those missions, either is oil spill spraying or is delivery of the specialty tools to the offshore stations, either it's an island or it's an oil rig. It requires special safety requirements, which needs to be fulfilled for every air vehicle which is manned, which is piloted. And that's why we believe that the future is really important about autonomy, actually much more than only electrification. So autonomy of those vehicles is going to be extremely important, because will not only impact the cost of operations, no pilot on board, that will be on the ground, but not on board, and higher payload. So we can forget then the person who, the pilot, the weight of the pilot can be replaced with something else. One of the missions that is very dear to our heart, because our main investor is performing this mission already now in the south of Europe, is the transportation of the transplant organs. Not only the organs, could be the tissues, the blood samples, but organs especially. Why? Because at the moment how it works, it's the entities or the hospitals, they are using the jets and they are using normal ambulance cars. So the risk for additional loss of time or potential accident is much higher. With the eVTOLs, we can aim to go roof to roof, hospital to hospital. And for the specific organs like lungs or the heart, they are not allowed to, let's say, travel alone, but they need to be escorted by the medical personnel. In Europe, I think it's required actually the doctor, but in our region, it's medical personnel. So its person needs to be on board with the organ when it's traveling. And in that case, it's important that we are not only aiming autonomous, but at this stage, we need to think about having pilot on board as well. And cargo delivery and passenger transportation is what we all think about. Manta aircraft is not focusing on the urban air mobility, so air taxi is not our, let's say, focus area. We focus on the regional air mobility, on the longer range from 300 to 1,000 kilometers, because of the hybrid propulsion system, we can serve that area. And we believe there will be a lot of need in this regional air mobility as well, maybe even more than the urban air mobility. And it's actually complementary with the urban air mobility. And at the end, like for the conclusion, what is for us important and for the whole industry that is developing at the moment, it's collaboration. So we just recently closed 2 partnerships with eVTOLs, but we are very open to discuss areas where we can support each other, where we can share the knowledge and maybe even the R&D or the IP with the licensing behind, but we can support each other to accelerate toward our final aim to start operations. and we can definitely cut the cost on the way. So anyone who is interested for further discussions, my contact, or you can reach to anyone from Manta Aircraft, Manta International, is the same company, it's just the name of the company. And we will be very happy to discuss possible collaborations.
All right. Thank you very much, Barbara, for, as always, comprehensive